Alright, welcome back to our discussion on ethics. So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Depends upon the time, no? When you're watching this video discussion. So, I found out that this kind of, arrangement would be more suitable for all of us. Since, as I have observed now, in the past few months, since 2020, because it's already 2021, although we are already scheduled for a particular time, still the others cannot make to attend. It's kind of ironic that they have work and they have things to do. So, like such, so this kind of arrangement would be suitable for all of us. Although from time to time, I'm going to meet you at our scheduled time if necessary. And also if there's an additional queries, I will be open to it. I will be attending it as long as I have the time. Alright, so for now, since we're done with the discussion with teleological ethics, as I have said, although it was focused on virtue ethics, I would like to call it in a broader name, which is the teleological ethics, because it has been, the background of it was not merely according to Aristotle, but also from his predecessors, which are Socrates and Plato. So here, natural law, we will be discussing this one. This kind of long, so please bear with me, and if you like, for an effective or efficient learning, I would recommend you to take down notes, because it's not good na from time to time you're going to go here in this video and recall a review. So just the past, dati nating nakasanayan, you can take down notes from this discussion. So, although before we're gonna proceed to natural law, let us have a short review. So, this kind of effective enough for you to remember what we have discussed in the first meetings that we have going on. So, although hedonism, I did not really focus on this one, but at least I have given you insights or overview about this. So, this is a philosophy of pleasure, because it is coming from the Greek word hedon, which means pleasure. So it means doing whatever brings you the greatest amount of pleasure, regardless of any other effects. So the first proponent, the ancient philosopher, was Epicurus. So for him, pleasure is the greatest good, but take note that he identified pleasure with tranquility. So tranquility, it's a very peaceful state, rather than tranquility is with satisfaction as well, rather than bodily gratification. Like you gratify yourself with food, with the sex, or whatsoever. So unemphasized the reduction of desire, so reduced on desire over the immediate acquisition of pleasure. But we have to take note that there is what we call pleasure paradox now, because if we have to take note that if we have to to pursue pleasure from moment to moment without regard for the future, let's say for example eating ice cream, so it is very gratifying and it's pleasurable for you, especially if you really like the flavor. But if you're gonna eat that one right now, and then the next proceeding hours and in the whole day, it's no longer pleasurable, it's no longer that good, it's no longer that gratifying. It would cause you stomach ache or whatsoever, and later on would have side effects in your body because it's very sweet. It would cause you diabetes or whatsoever. So somehow, although if you are going to look at it closely, you can say that hedonism is as simple as that, pursuing pleasure, enjoying pleasure. But if you have to look at the although hedonism or hedonistic perspective is like enjoying the moment without regard for the future or the afterlife. So if you have to take note, these are the bad sides nor the lapses of the hedonism. If you're gonna look at the long run, that has bad effects as well. So in the contemporary perspective of hedonism class, like for example the movement, or it's a group, no, Hedonist International, they said that you have to strive first and foremost for pleasure, as did their predecessors, like the predecessors, no. So but with an additional emphasis on personal freedom and equality. So it's being applied not to the social realm. So with personal freedom and equality, so somehow it's centered for a self-centered, no, na perspective. While the Christian hedonism is a recent controversial Christian doctrine, because if you're gonna take a look on this, it's kinda ironic because it would not really fit, or kumbaga mo coincide sa doktrina sa mga Kristiyano. So current in some evangelical circles, which holds that humans were created by God with the priority purpose of lavishly enjoying God through knowing, worshiping, and serving Him. So although na-justify naman, if you're gonna look at it, the purpose of the Christian perspective of hedonism is more on enjoying, no? Since we are created by God, so we are to focus ourselves to God, knowing, worshiping, and serving Him, which somehow, if you are into devotion, of course, like born-agains, having their Christian worships or like such, it would indeed gratify them in a sense, it's at some higher level. So, from Epicurus, there is a saying that pleasure is the beginning and the end of living happily. Alright, so proceed. Utilitarianism holds what's ethical or moral is whatever maximizes total happiness. So, take note of the total happiness while minimizing total pain. Wala yung pain, no? So the word total is important here. If you act ethically, according to utilitarianism, you're not maximizing your happiness, but the total happiness of the whole human race. So if you act ethically, which is pursuing the total happiness, so wala lang ka nag-maximize sa imong kagaling happiness, but of the whole human race. So it's kind of broad, no? But there are some criticisms to that as well. So the main idea of utilitarian ethics is secure the greatest good for the greatest number, which is the version of chance the word nil, the principle of utility. So it will depend the morality of the action, or how ethical is the action, will depend upon the greatest good or the greatest happiness it will produce, with corresponding to the greatest number. So majority wins. So here, if you're going to take note, this simple line but might confuse you. The end justifies the mean. When we say the end justifies the mean, the end this is the consequence, while the mean is the action itself. So if the consequence is good, then regardless if the action is not really good, it will be justified, since okay naman ang consequence. Okay ra na siyang pamaagi. Like for example, feeding feeding your child because of hunger and sickness. So in order to satisfy, in order for you to feed your child, you nanangawat ka in that sense. So you will be justifying your action because of the consequence it holds. So the greatest happiness principle holds that actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, and wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness, which is pain. So alright, so next here we have the ontology. On the other hand, the ontology focuses on the rightness or the wrongness of actions themselves. The focus is the actions themselves, as opposed to the rightness or wrongness of the consequences of those actions. So, opposed to the rightness or wrongness of the consequences of these actions, which is the version of consequentialism or utilitarianism, or to the character and habits of the actor, virtue ethics. So these are the imperatives, categorical imperatives of the ontology. Act only. I hope I already discussed this to you well. Act only in such a way that you would want your actions to become a universal law, applicable to everyone in a similar situation. No exemption, it's universal. Act in such a way that you always treat humanity, whether yourself or others, as both the means of an action, but also as an end. Dili lang kay gamiton nimo, but as an end as well. Alright. Act as though you were a law-making member and also the king of a hypothetical kingdom of ends, and therefore only in such a way that would harmonize with such a kingdom, if those laws were binding on all others. So you will also look and prioritize the well-being of all, the highest good of everyone. So I will be giving you my opinion regarding the chaos, somehow political chaos in the United States of America as of now. So the mean justifies the end. This is the reverse of utilitarianism, because regardless of the consequence, as long as you do the action rightly, kung sakto ang imong pagbuhat, then regardless of the consequence, maayo mo na siya madili, still it's okay because you did it right. Let's say for example, na kuan ka, you are having an exam but you were not able to study, but you did not cheat, although you did not pass. It's okay. So because you did the right thing, wala ka na luwid. Or the other example is that telling the truth as the problem of the axe murderer, and then your friend is hiding at your room, and then you have to tell the truth. So you're guilty because you told the truth, you did the right thing. Alright, lastly, virtue ethics and the previous video discussion, which emphasizes an individual's character as the key element of ethical thinking. So it is based on agent-centered in the actor is the focus of virtue ethics, and how that actor should flourish, should form, and should make himself a good person, rather than rules about the acts themselves, as opposed to deontology and consequentialism. So tulogan na sila sikap yun kayo, deontology, consequentialism, and virtue ethics. So virtue, for Socrates, it is the knowledge of good and evil. So knowledge of good and evil for Socrates. But according to the dictionary, virtue is the behavior showing high moral standards. Yung tag high moral standards na katong mga maayo, may yung tag law, mga law, so mga kung ano tagay na siya, yan na siya maayo, something, or opposite it. So showing high moral standards. So opposite to it is vice, which is the mga dili maayong mga buhat or actions. So the paradigm here of virtue ethics class. So first, you have to use your reason to know what are these virtues. In order for this virtue or virtues to be not really in here, but somehow to be part of yourself, to be your character, to be you, to become your embodiment. So there are two separate virtues, which is the moral virtues and intellectual virtues. The intellectual virtues can be earned through instructions or learning, or by listening from teachers. This is the development of human reason. So understanding, judging, reasoning. While moral virtues can be earned by habit, so it should be practiced always, not occasionally but always. So this too, if you want this to be you, to be part of you, you have to practice the moral virtues by habit, and then instruction, you have to follow instruction to listen. So this moral virtues and intellectual virtues, once you earn this one, it will become your character. So, muna siya, if you will, as you have observed in the social realm, social status, as you observe, in the social environment, there are people who are mature enough with who are well aware with virtues. Mga tao nga di kabalong muyaga-yaga, or in the sense nga offensive, mga tao nga dili kahibalo mo bully, in a sense nga very offensive na sa mga tao nga very careful sa ilang ginasulti in everything or in every dialogue or conversation they had, not to hurt other feelings whatsoever. So that becomes a character. But of course, this is with purity of conscience, and purity of conscience without pretension. So it is really you. And as you go along, it will proceed, it will lead you to the state of eudaimonia, a life of stability, a life of happiness. Dili lang kay happy in the basic sense, but happiness in the higher sense. Alright, so here, the table. So the ontology is, the morality is about finding good rules that you will make it universal. Consequentialism or utilitarianism, it's based on outcomes. Kaingon ka nga sakto na, kasakto ang outcomes. Virtue ethics, it depends upon the actor be forming a good people, a good person. So, the ontology, we should come up with a system of rules to guide our behavior and stick by it. Consequentialism, we should assess the most likely results of our actions and choose the actions with the best results. Take note. In virtue ethics, we should work on becoming more honest, compassionate, kind, courageous, and short, virtuous. As we become more virtuous, we'll make more ethical choices and won't need rules. Alright, so we're done with it, and hopefully you have already got in just a few minutes learned something in the 3 or 4 for the hedonism, utilitarianism, the ontology, and virtue ethics. So let's proceed to the natural law ethics, which will be the guidance. It's kind of difficult now compared to the 3 or the 4. So it will be based on the natural law. So for Galileo Galilei, I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with sense, reason, and intellect has intended us to forego their use. So for him, di daw siya mutuo nga ang Diyos, ang Ginoo nga naghatag nato kahibalo, nga ganahan po siya nga dili nato gamiton ng mga talents nga gihatag nato. So natural law theory, it is moral law presumed to be grounded in nature itself. Grounded in nature. So somehow kinaiya. So if you have to study the terminologies, Visayan terminologies, kinaiya, batasan, nga commonly interpreted nato as batasan, kinaiya or attitude. Kinaiya is somehow deeper. It does not really equally mean to batasan or attitude, because attitude is somehow kinaiya, but attitude in a different sense na. Kinaiya is nature. Kinaiyahan. Nature. Kinaiya. So, nature, but when you say nature, it is or cannot be changed. Dili na siya mabago because that is kinaiya. Kinaiyahan. While attitude in some sense can be changed or can be formed into something, mas mamayo pa nga tao. So, a natural law is based on nature, of course. That's it, called natural law. It is a norm for ethical behavior that is deemed binding on all humans because it coheres with human essence or with the structure of the universe, perhaps because it was legislated by God. So, take note, natural law ethics is theistic in nature. Yung theistic in nature, this ethics is based on the based on the conduct or somehow judgment of God. So this is given by God. This is the challenge here, because there are some people who do not believe in God, who only believe in science or positivism. So positivism, they're only referring to that ethics should be based or should be grounded with science, with empirical evidence. When we say empirical evidence, it is tangible. It is not imaginary. It's not abstract. It is existing. It is present. It is tangible. So when you say God is an abstract idea. It is somehow an idea that cannot be proven by facts. When we say by facts, empirical evidence or by science. So this is somehow in a different sense, because it's very hard to reconcile, and there are so many thinkers who have tried to reconcile science in the sense of opposition to faith, no? Because faith does not require evidence, while science requires evidence. So when we say that science and religion is not in contradiction, yes, of course, in many aspects it does not contradict. But there are some sense or some aspects it really contradicts. So this is somehow, there is something that is trying to revolutionize, to wipe out the present ethical frameworks and systems, to assert that science should has a say on ethical spheres or something. So it says here that natural law is deemed binding on all humans. So when you say binding on all humans, it regardless of the race, regardless of origin, regardless of culture or whatsoever, natural law is the same for all of us. That's why it binds all of us, because we as humans have the same essence. Kinaiya. We are humans, and we are wearing same uniform, humanity. Regardless of your color or your race, you're humans. You're human. Sorry. So there, we are binded with natural law. So insofar as natural law can be known, although I will be discussing also later on the definition of natural law, so that you can have the further understanding, can be known by reason alone. When we say reason alone, because natural law cannot be grasped by your hands or your naked eye. You cannot see it. It is something abstract. It's not tangible. It's not. It cannot be sensed by your senses. So they provide guidance without special revelation. They provide guidance for all humans, and when followed, they enhance the common good, but also render each person morally responsible to a divine judge. So let's see later on as the discussion goes on. So what do we mean by natural law? In its simplest definition, natural law is the unwritten law. So it is far different from human laws, promulgated by the Congress, by senators, or by our lawmakers. So this is unwritten. Wala na siya nasulat. So this is more or less the same for everyone or everywhere. To be more exact, natural law is the concept of body of moral principles that is common to all humankind, and is generally posited, is recognizable by human reason alone. So natural law is therefore distinguished from and provides a standard for positive law. Positive law is scientific laws, the formal legal enactments of a particular society. So this is coming from Dr. Jonathan Bulhente. So let's say, for example, killing is is against moral law. Huwag kang magpatay. You should not kill. You must not kill. That particular commandment as a moral law, I guess it's the same here in the Philippines, the same in the United States, it's the same in Europe, it's the same in India, in Africa, in Australia, in China, in Japan, in Russia. I guess it's the same. That it's really not good, and it should not supposedly be done by anybody. So somehow we have that same or common perception of that law, although it was introduced by the Judaism, by the Jews, the Judeo, in the Decalogue or the Ten Commandments, adopted by Christianism and other religions. So, since law must always be some dictate of reason, natural law also will be some dictate of reason. So, in fact, it is law discovered by human reason. So, naano na siya because it's nature, natural. It just needs to be discovered. So our normal and natural grasp of the natural law is affected by reason, that is by the thinking mind, and this service reason is sometimes called conscience. So this kind of faculty that's being referred to, that supply a reason, is conscience. So conscience is very common to theology. Different teleology, theology, the study of God, and of course in ethics. The conscience, it's somehow a faculty in you that would say that it's good or bad. It will distinguish for you, and that's the thing that would make you feel guilty if you've done something wrong. So he goes on to say, we in all our human acts inevitably see them in the relation to the natural law, and we mentally pronounce upon their agreement or disagreement with the natural law. So such a pronouncement may be called a judgment of conscience. The norm of morality is the natural law as applied by conscience. Lastly, we can say that the natural law is the disposition of things as known by human reason, and to which we must conform ourselves if we are to realize our proper end or good as human beings. So this is the disposition of things as discovered by human reason, and we have to conform to it in order for us to be good as human beings, because in reverse, if we will not follow, there will be consequence. So we will be talking that one later on as well. So the idea initially arose among the Jews, Greeks, and Romans, because they were the first conquerors and civilizations, promoted by Judaism and Stoicism. But it came to the foreground in the Christian tradition as thinkers drew from both philosophy and the Bible to devise a theory of morality and politics that could be understood to be universally applicable. So natural rights, this is the ancient form. Entitlements with which humans are endowed by nature or by virtue of their status as being human. So we have to consider the contribution of Aristotle. He says, one part of what is politically just is natural, and the other part is legal. So ang politika is based on natural and legal. What is natural has the same validity everywhere alike, because that's natural, independent of its seeming so or not. What is legal is what originally makes no difference whether it is done one way or another, but makes a difference whenever people have laid down the rule. So we have different interpretations of the rule. So that a goat rather than 2 sheep should be sacrificed. So we have different and relative ideas or perspectives to it. So another one, so there is in nature a common principle of the just and unjust. Just and unjust. and that all people in some way divine through discernment, even if they have no association or commerce with each other. So in nature, common, all of us, all people, through discernment, we have that conception of just and unjust, even though we have no association or commerce with each other. Like for example, I have these ideas already, bisag wala pa ko naka-meet nimo na you have same idea as well. So it seems has originality that all of us have these ideas before or prior discussing this one with others. So let's consider as well the contribution of Cicero, Marcus Tullius Cicero, a scholar, statesman of Rome. He described law as the reason highest implanted in nature, which commands what ought to be done and forbids the opposite. He said that right is based not upon men's opinions but upon nature. So nature is above any other law. Okay, if it were based on men's opinions, even the law of men somehow is in contradiction or not consistent with other laws. So imagine the abortion is being legalized has to be has to be accepted legally. Saying okay ra i-abort yung bata, but we have first and foremost that everyone has the right to live, diba? So that child, even before the child is born, that child has already the right to live. Just because of the feminist movement that they own their body and sila mo magbuhat sa ilang lawas. In the first place, it was their deed that made them like that. So, stupid, absurd. Kung di ka ganahan mabuntis, then do not involve yourself to such, diba? And then be held irresponsible for the actions you've done by aborting the child. You have to ponder about it. Alright, he goes on to say, what is right and true is also eternal, and does not begin or end. So, eternal, it will not change, it will not end. With written statutes. From this point of view, it can readily understood by that those who formulated wicked and unjust statutes for nations, thereby breaking their promises and agreements, put into effect anything but laws. It may thus be clear that in the very definition of the term law, there inheres the idea and principle of choosing what is just and true. Therefore, law is the distinction between things just and unjust, made in agreement with the primal and most ancient of all things. Nature, and in conformity to nature's standard, are framed those human laws which inflict punishment upon the wicked but defend and protect the good. So you know the reason why Cicero said that law is the distinction between things just and unjust? It is because his law, the law he is being referred here, is the natural law, which is grounded with nature. So that's why it is the law that distinguishes the difference between just and unjust. Because our laws right now, our human laws, can no longer, separate categorically what is evil and what is just, what is unjust. Because abortion for them is already just. So that is not natural law. So that's why it is in conformity to nature's standard. Because the consequence of this, if it will not conform, there will be a punishment for those who did the unjust doings or wicked doings. So it should defend and protect the good. Alright, so Sir William Blackstone said, as man depends absolutely upon his maker for everything, so it involves faith, it involves Bible, it involves theology. So this is kind of very biased and a no-no for the atheists. But let's just go on, let's just consider this one. As man depends absolutely upon his maker for everything, it is necessary that he should, in all points, conform to his maker's will. This will of his maker is called the law of nature. So this law of nature being coeval, so this law of nature being coeval with mankind and dictated by God himself is of course superior in obligation to any other. It is binding over all the globe, in all countries and at all times. No human laws are of any validity, if contrary to this, and such of them as are valid derive all of the force and all the authority immediately from this original. So I'm always saying that as you have to depend to the Maker God. So in all points, follow the will of your Maker, of your God, which is being referred here by Blackstone as the natural law, the will of God, the will of the Maker. And this is dictated by God and supernatural in nature. So it's kinda superior than any other laws. So it is the same from here and there and everywhere. So that's from Blackstone's point of view, and that is not acceptable to atheists and another sect that doesn't believe in God. So natural law theory: things in nature have a nature. Things in nature have a nature. Things in nature, we are in nature. Other entities, we are in the nature, have a nature. All of us, the trees, the stones, animals, plants, humans, we have nature. So things are bad when they are unnatural. So atong mga dili natural, so they are bad according to this, according to natural law theory. So what are the unnatural things? Mga ingon tag unnatural things. So it's against the nature or against sa kinaiyahan. Wala na conform to the nature. Things are good when they fulfill their nature. So what is your nature? According to Aristotle, we are rational beings, so we have to fulfill our nature to do our function. So our function is to maximize our reason to achieve the good of us, which is to achieve the state of eudaimonia through character building. So people are good when they fulfill their true nature. Bad humans are those who do not. So moral law is the natural law, the law that requires us to act in accordance with our nature. So, unsa magud adi atong nature as human beings? So there are thinkers who said that we are evil by nature. So if we are evil by nature, as Plato said that we are greedy and depraved. So if that is our nature, if we will follow that nature, kung greedy and depraved, then that's against moral law, and that's against the natural law that we are discussing right now. But for Aristotle, very certainly good, then we have to follow, we have to act in accordance to that nature, that we are good by nature. Alright. So at its most basic, natural law theory tells us that actions are right just because they are natural, wrong just because they are unnatural. Kumbaga, if you have to distinguish the difference, like life and non-life. So naay kinabuhi, walay kinabuhi. So natural of dili natural, they are the opposites, darkness and not darkness. So, and people are good to the extent that they fulfill their true nature, bad insofar as they flout it. So here, in summary, natural is not made by human beings. It's based on the structure of reality. So if there are two, we make no mistake that there are two angles to look or to understand natural law. First is in the perspective of knowing in a theistic perspective that is given by God. that's not made by humans. So when you say it's not made by humans, so it's made by God. But the other way around is that, of course, in the blanket as believers, we always say that it is all coming from God. But using the pure reason to the extent for you not to be biased for all people, for non-believers and believers, you would say that natural law is something found in nature, discovered by human reason, and this natural law cannot be opposed, cannot be stopped. It will really fulfill its purpose. It will serve its purpose because it's natural. Like for example, river. When the river flows, yes, you can divert the movement of the water, like making canals. But by the time that the nature will become, superior in the sense like there's a flood, you cannot stop it where it goes, because that's the flow of nature. Let's say, for example, like human body. Let's make it more concrete. Human body, you have an operation. Operahan ka. It healed na ayo. Pero patingal na kayo in the same sense anong pagpasagad po sa kaugalingan, it will open again. Because that is a wound. Samad man na siya. Nataklupan na siya, but the healing of the samad, as long as you will abuse your body again, will open again. Because your body will not deny na wala kay samad kung kina kay samad. So, it's based on the structure of reality. Structure of reality because you can observe it. It's around you. Nagutom ka, it's your instinct. Gutom ka, kaon ka. Because that's the flow of nature of your body. So it's the same for all human beings and at all times. It is unchanging rule or pattern which is there for human beings to discover. So unchanging rule. Di po may mo ang pagpatay mo okay na siya later on. So di po na siya pwede. It is naturally knowable moral law. Naturally knowable. It's really knowable. Like for example, harming yourself or others. Would you say that it's okay to harm others or not? So of course it's not good to harm others, because if you do it yourself, you will not like it as well. So it is a means by which people everywhere can be enriched and rewarded. So individuals and as communities, all of us. Alright. Okay, so let's proceed. Okay, so let us consider. Hold on. All right, let's consider this quotes. We are designed to be moral according to Paul Shackley. So we're designed to be moral. So this is kinda we were based on our design, human design. We are definitely at our most peaceful state when we adhere to natural law. Try to think about this. If you try to be good and try to behave yourself according to your nature as a good human beings, and to adhere to what others want, like to be peaceful person. Okay, if you will adhere to it as well, if you are a troublemaker, then you will not be peaceful, because here and there you will have an enemy. Alright, so justification, witness of deep conscience. So these are the we are to look, if you're going to look at this, witness of deep conscience. So if we will not do the natural law, if we will not follow or act according to the natural law, if we will do the vices instead, or the opposite instead, the reverse, like we will kill, your guilt or the power of your conscience will arise. No one cannot deny that all of us have that particular kind of faculty that will remind us that it was a sin, it was a wrong. The witness of cosmos, purpose, or our design. What is the design? Number 3. That is to grow, to to produce oxygen, to process carbon dioxide towards the oxygen, to give shade, to make the environment balance, ecological balance. Okay, kung wala na kahoy, our environment will be destroyed as well. So we will do according to our design. We will act according to our design. What is the purpose or the design of water? That is to satisfy thirst, to still for ecological balance, to feed the animals, to satisfy the thirst, and then for the nature. So it will follow here and there. The water will be recycled, it will become moist, and then again it will be recycled by the nature, and it will be clean. It will be clean again, and it will be used again, clean again, so like that. So somehow, if you're gonna wonder, like the Indian or Hinduism, no, belief, the way they believe that there is reincarnation, the flow of life. You will die, and then you will born again into a different entity. Depends upon your karma sa imong silot based sa imong behavior sa imong pagkinabuhi. So kung maayo ka kinabuhi, then pwede kang ma-reverse into a human again, or a human god, or whatsoever. Because they studied nature. The water will be used to become waste, and then it will be reprocessed, and it will be clean again, and it will be okay again. So like that. Human design. So of course this is focused on human, our design, our nature. Godward longings. We have that longings for a superior being, for a supreme being that we can rely on to during our crisis and during our down moments whatsoever, and witness of consequences. We are witnessing consequences of our bad actions. When we behave and we do good actions, we can witness good consequences as well. Right. Another justification. This is from Tolentino. It is interesting to note that virtually everyone seems to have some knowledge of natural law, even before such knowledge is codified and formalized. So, bisag wala pa na siya na-codified and formalized, wala pa siya ma-established through printing press. Seems that everyone have already the knowledge of natural law. Even young children make an appeal to fair play. Ang mga bata ba, mo-demand gani sila nga dapat ang atong pagdula or paghampang is fair. Walay daya. So older children, adults often play the golden rule. So in doing so, they're spontaneously invoking the natural law to be fair, to be good, to act according to the moral law, to be to act in accordance to virtue. This is why many proponents of the natural law theory say it is the law which is written upon the hearts of men. Although it was not written on printing press, on papers whatsoever, in the constitutions, it is written upon the hearts of men. So, okay, let's proceed. What is the nature of man? According to Rice, the essential nature of man is unalterable because it is a reflection of the unchanging divine essence. Very beautiful. It is kinda synonymous to or similar to the book of Genesis, that we're created according to the image of God. So, reflection of the unchanging divine essence. So what is the nature of man? This is according to Aquinas. So Thomas Aquinas now is one of the greatest, or it's being referred or have a title holder, universal teacher of the Roman Catholic Church, philosopher and theologian. All those things to which man has a natural inclination are naturally apprehended by reason as being good, and consequently as objects of pursuit, and their contraries as evil, and of objects of avoidance. So, the natural inclinations being said there is this: first, to seek the good, including the highest good, which is eternal happiness with God. So you have to pursue strengthening your relationship with God, to preserve himself in existence, to preserve the species, that is, to unite sexually in order for you to multiply, to preserve the species. to live in community with other men, because no man is an island, to use his intellect and will, that is to know the truth and to make his own decisions. We have also the longing to always strive for the truth, because we cannot live with lie, and to make our own decisions. So, these inclinations are put into human nature by God to help man achieve his final end of eternal happiness. From these inclinations we apply the natural law by deduction. Good should be done, these actions is good, these actions therefore should be done. So that's by law or by deduction. So needs siya mabuhat because the action is good. Alright, let's proceed. So what is natural law theory? Hold on. Natural law theory, there are foundational moral principles which are not only right for all but at some level known to all. So in other words, there exist ethical standards which are the same for all, meaning they are right for everyone at some level. Everyone knows them. So it's somehow, it is built into the design of human nature and woven into the fabric of normal human mind. It is genuine knowledge written on the heart. So, very beautiful ng ingon ni Thomas Aquinas na it's built into the design of human nature and woven into the fabric of the normal human mind. It is genuine knowledge written on the heart. So therefore, there are no moral skeptics. Suppose skeptics are playing make believe. So, no, we cannot deny it. There are really skeptics against the natural law, and they are the atheists. So clarifying natural law theory. Natural law is not innate, for we are not born knowing it. So dili siya innate because it is outside of us. Nang tag innate, natawo kang kauban na. So naa na nimo daan sa wala pa ka natawo. So dili po na siya innate, dili po na siya nato kauban sa atong pagkatao because it is aside, because it's nature, it's outside of us. With the capability of understanding, we come to understand what is meant by murder and by wrong. So, using our human reason, we can really say that it's really wrong. So, natural law is not merely biological instinct. Because a biological instinct, though it does take into account for certain biological realities, because it is outside. We just discovered it. Natural law is not mere custom, though customs of almost all times and places more or less acknowledge it. We say custom, though customs, like nakatunan ra nato sa ato ang tribo asa tanagkan. So dili po siya ingana because we have that kind of understanding already, although before learning it. So natural law is not a law of nature in the same sense that gravitation is a law of nature. So make no mistake that natural law that we are discussing here is different with the scientific law of nature, like gravitational pull and push. So natural law here, it's not grounded with such understanding in science, but in a different sense, although it's also abstract. So consider the following statement by Charles Weiss. Natural law will seem mysterious if we forget that everything has a law built into its nature. So it is mysterious if we forget everything has a law. So the nature of a rock is such that it will sink if you throw it into a pan. An automobile, the mobile, will function if you feed it gasoline. If you put sand in the tank instead, you may be sincere in your belief that the car will run, but you will end up a pedestrian. Natural law is the story of how things work. If you want your body to function well, you ought not to treat it as if it were a trash compactor. Natural law is easy to understand when we are talking about the physical nature, but it applies as well to the moral spheres. So, he said further, morality is governed by law, built into the nature of man and knowable by reason. Like for example, the Ten Commandments and other prescriptions of divine law specify some applications of that natural law. Okay, so clarification. These are the things that natural law does not do. Natural law provides a guide through which we can safely and rightly choose to love by God by acting in accord with our nature and by helping others to do the same. We can know the requirement of the natural law through reason and aided by explicit revelation. But because of the weakness and disorder caused in our nature by original sin, so this is the theological now, we are likely to make mistakes. So God has provided revelation to enable us to know with certainty how we ought to act. The natural law and revelation complement each other. So there is not a natural morality and a supernatural morality, but only one salvific morality, and of which natural law morally is existentially apart. So no wonder he is a priest. This is of the Jesuit. So consider this one. This is from Blaise Pascal. He said, "The immortality of the soul is something of such vital importance to us, affecting us so deeply, that one must have lost all feeling not to care about knowing the facts of the matter. All of our actions and thoughts must follow such different paths, according to whether there is hope of eternal blessing or not, that the only possible way of acting with sense and judgment is to decide our course in the light of this point which ought to be our ultimate objective." Pagka-bishop na siya, no? Alright. We'll no longer read those further. So, the distinction between yes and no, true and false, good and evil cannot be given up unless men want to give up being human. So, dili ko na siya nato ma-give up like that there is really just and unjust, true and wrong, there is right and, right and lie, and good and bad, sort of. So take note of these 4 kinds of law by Aquinas. So there are 4 kinds of law: the eternal law, natural law, human law, divine law. For him, the eternal law is the God's plan for the world. So Augustine said it is the reason of the will of God, who commands us to respect the natural order and forbids us to disturb it. This is universal rational orderliness. While the natural law, these are things somewhat part of the eternal law. This is the light of natural reason, whereby we discern what is good and what is evil, which is the function of the natural law, is nothing else than an imprint on us of the divine light. It is therefore evident that the natural law is nothing else than the rational creature's participation of divine law. So first, self-evident precept of the natural law is that good is to be done and pursued, and evil is to be avoided. So this is kind of a refined ethical perspective now. Like, you have to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. Here, the one that you will be pursuing is the good, and the evil is to be avoided. So because there, the pain is being defined as evil, while pleasure is being defined as the good. So that was kind of a twisted thinking, our ideas now. But here it's being specified into a more sense statement that it is the good that is to be pursued and evil is to be avoided. All other precepts of the natural law are based on this self-evident law. Well, the human law is, since the eternal law is the plan of government in the chief governor, God is the governor. So, in the inferior governors must be derived from the eternal law. So, it's the lower rank na siyang human law. And the divine law, the scriptures, the holy scriptures. Besides the natural and human, it was necessary for the directing of human conduct of divine law. So, the Old and New Testament. So, the divine law complements the natural law. So, here, it is necessary for man to accept by faith. So, the basis in here is faith, not evidence. Not only things which are above reason, but also those which can be known by reason, and this for 3 motives. First, in order that man may arrive more quickly at the knowledge of divine truth. Second, in order that the knowledge of God may be more general. For many are unable to make progress in the study of science. So, take note. For many are unable to make progress in the study of science, either through dullness of mind or through having a number of occupations and temporal needs. or even through laziness and learning, all of whom will be altogether deprived of the knowledge of God unless divine things be brought to their knowledge under the guise of faith. So, very beautiful. Like, for example, some quotations in the Bible or verses that the fear of God is wisdom. So, first, you have to first follow the will of God, and then later on, everything will be added unto you. Depends upon your dedication. Alright, so the third reason is for the sake of certitude. Sa pagka-certain na sakto, kuan gina siya, mauna gina siya. For human reason is very deficient in things concerning God. Dili good enough ang ating human reason to know God. A sign of this is that philosophers in their researches, by natural investigation, even Thomas Aquinas have tried to, but his version is very profound, but not enough, or not that convincing to the scientists to believe in the existence of God. Into human affairs, have fallen into many errors and have disagreed among themselves. And consequently, in order that men might have knowledge of God, free of doubt and uncertainty. So that's certitude, free of doubt and uncertainty. It was necessary for divine matters to be delivered to them by way of faith, being told to them as it is were by God Himself, who cannot lie. So for the Roman Catholics, we have so many saints for whom God has revealed His wisdom. So like Father, I forgot. Let's just say Anthony of Padua, and some other saints who can see through even the very sins of the man. Makita niya the soul of the person. Makita niya because of that revelation or that God has shown to that person. And I guess it's true as well to other denominations, Protestant denominations, having that kind of level of understanding, as they devote themselves to God. So, so consider the following. As to certain most, let's move. Okay. According to most general precepts that are known to all, the natural law, in the abstract, can nowise be blotted out from men's hearts. However, the natural law is blotted out in the case of a particular action, insofar as reason is hindered from applying the general principle to a particular point of practice on account of concupiscence of some other passion. So, mahimo siyang dili siya mag-blot out, di siya mawala sa kasing-kasing sa tao, but it kinda be hidden, like dili ni kaayo siya mo prevail over you if you have other some concupiscence or some other passion that drive your heart to it, like for example addiction. So if you're addicted to illegal drugs, let's say for example, of course you will be perverted, you will be twisted, and all your longings, all your longings will be directed to whatever things it might lead you to, because it would take your rationality from you. Not really the literal removal, but somehow mawala ka sa mga katinuan. So, but as to the secondary precepts, the natural law can be blotted out from the human heart either by evil persuasions. So we have evil persuasions. So we are following like a master, no? Like, if you are being paid to kill and kill and kill, so maybe you will be into different direction. So you will be away from the understanding of God. So just as in speculative matters, errors occur in respect of necessary conclusions, or by vicious customs and corrupt habits, as among some men, theft and even unnatural vices, as the Apostle states, were not esteemed sinful. So again, from Rice, okay, So here, so Aquinas, systems of laws, the integration of natural and human laws with eternal and divine laws. So comparison. Alright, so here, so natural law, which is ang teacher is the conscience. So originated from the Judaism, and then furtherly explained by Aquinas. Especially the most common example is the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments. So we know that we are to pursue good and avoid evil because natural law is weakened in the heart. And we have the ability to tell right from wrong. So we can violate natural law, but when we do, we personally suffer like guilt. Alright. So I guess we're done, no? We're done with the slides for preparing for the natural law ethics. So somehow, as I've said earlier, that it is kinda ethics and in a theistic form is a biased way or not acceptable to the eyes or ears of the non-believers of God, because theistic is somehow given from God and they are non-believers of God in the first place. So they would they would instead prefer to follow ethics that is based on science. When you say science, it is objective. It is let's say for example, sex law. For in the eyes or perspective of religion or in a theistic form, if you are doing it before marriage, it will be immoral. Somehow, it is against. Or you are doing it with other partners here and there, like that. But for science, it would be different. There would be different perspective with that. Because somehow you would say that sexual urges is a natural need of your body. So that's a different explanation of that. But they will say, no, it is not bad. It is the need in my body. Because it's a natural urge in my body. So that's somehow different perspective of telling the right and wrong. Of course, as you have now class, we are coming from the perspective of hedonism, deontology, utilitarianism, and virtue ethics. There are different ways to look on a certain situation. But it is our nature to pursue the good and to something about you and your capacity. So if you have questions, class, regarding this lesson, please drop a questions in the comments below. You can private message me regarding that one. I will address that one in the next video discussion. And please prepare for a quiz for the Thursday classes on Friday, as well with the Friday classes that will still be on Friday, since I have not met you only in this video discussion. So I hope it will be fine. So I will schedule you. I will just post an update or announcement. It depends here in the Facebook group or Google Classrooms or our chat boxes. Alright, thank you so much. God bless, and thank you for listening.